is joining us. He is the CEO of Magna International. Don, nice to be with you today and to get your perspective. What was your reaction when you heard the news, and what kind of changes would you expect to see or want to see?
Well, I always thought that Minister Marneau did a good job. Running the country is not easy, and I think he brought good perspective on probably a balance between being too conservative and spending too much money. So I've worked a lot with Minister Freeland. I have a lot of respect for her. I've dealt with her a lot, specifically through the USMCA. So I'm sure whatever she takes on, she's going to do a good job.
And do you think that that there's almost in some ways too much on her plate in terms of her current position and adding such a new and complex file to her? She doesn't come from Bay Street. Will that be a bit of an issue at all?
Well, I don't know if coming from Bay Street matters. Chrystia does have a lot on her plate. I was talking to her recently about this, the latest aluminum issue. So I know she gets into a lot of detail. It's going to be up to her to pick the best people, the strongest people to be around her. I'm not sure what her finance background is. So, I think the government's going to have to figure out how we get through this virus without continuing to run up such a massive deficit. I think this has been an extreme situation. So now it's probably time to come back to what are we going to do from a financial standpoint? What's the government going to do to get the economy back and make sure we're not really creating such a big deficit in the future and debt in the future to deal with?
And to your point, I mean, a $343 billion projected deficit is obviously cause for concern, specifically the speed and the momentum with which we got to that level. What, from your perspective, knowing that we've still got to bridge the gap between now and when we get through this pandemic, would you want to see from a fiscal policy response?
Well, I think we have to start putting the brakes on some of the spending, and I don't know the details. It's going to be up to the people to really figure out where you need to continue to support people, but we need to be getting people back to work. In the auto industry, we've done a really good job, in my opinion, looking after the safety of people, getting people back to work. That's globally, because it's a globally connected business, and it supports tens of millions of jobs directly and indirectly. So I think encouraging people to get back to work and get back to work safely is important, but we do need to get the economy rolling again, or else we're going to look back at this and say that the cure was worse than the disease, if you look at what's happening globally. So we need to get people back in functioning society.
What do you think is one of the best ways to do that, Don? I mean, we've talked about this now for a number of weeks in terms of almost the media messaging and also government messaging as it relates to the communication and almost a bit of a fear factor. People might want to stay at home, so the messaging is important. At the same time, some of the programs with respect to the wages are also important. Where do you come out in terms of the right way to encourage people to get back to work and or companies to feel comfortable bringing people back?
Well, within the automotive industry, we call it a Smart Start playbook, which is very detailed on what we're doing for screening and looking after people and distancing and cleaning and everything else. So I think, and that's been shared not only with the automotive industry, with everybody. I think just dealing with the facts with people. Nobody has all the facts, but the more we deal with facts as it pertains to the virus, I think Premier Ford has done a great job in just communicating and telling people what's really going on. You can't change the past, so what are we going to do for seniors and getting businesses back and opening things up in the right manner, telling people exactly what you expect and then holding them accountable, whether it's using masks and distancing. But we have to get the society back running again. So I think just continuing with very clear messaging and expectations, and I think that's the best we can do. And people are worried about the disease, but we've got very good processes in place within our industry, and I think all industries are probably doing the same thing.
Don, give us a bit of an update, if you could, in terms of how your industry is currently faring. Where were you going back 2 months ago versus where you are today?
Well, Magna has over 300 manufacturing facilities around the world, and we've got them all back at work. It looks like the demand has picked up in China, which is a very big market for vehicles. Europe is a bit slower. we're not seeing the demand for the end consumer as much, but North America looks quite healthy. So Q2 results for everybody was very disappointing and expected, though, if you're not working. Looks like from a Q3 standpoint, as long as the end consumers are buying vehicles, but it looks like they are, too early to tell how long it'll take to get back to pre-virus levels, but it looks relatively encouraging. So as long as we keep society open and people can go out and buy cars, I'm relatively optimistic that the rest of the year should be going well, and going into next year, I think there's still going to be some residual impact, but overall it's getting back to normal and all of our plants are running.
And Don, what are your thoughts as it relates to the latest tariffs imposed on Canadian aluminum?
Well, my comment is I think the new Kuzma USMCA was extremely complicated, very well done, and I think Minister Freeland deserves a lot of credit for that. So it's disappointing to see when it just come into effect that there's the aluminum situation. Hopefully that goes away, because it's not good for NAFTA to have any tariffs internally. We'll see what happens. But overall, I think getting NAFTA done was a big boost in the arm for people investing in North America, for us being competitive here, for creating jobs here, because we can be competitive on the global stage then. So, it's annoyance. It's a small bump in the road. I hope it will go away. But NAFTA was a really important thing to get done for Magna's the biggest supplier of parts in North America and the industry, quite frankly. So I think NAFTA will be better served now that it's done, and hopefully it doesn't get disrupted.
And how concerned are you? Because there is a concern in the marketplace right now that we will see additional tariffs put on Canada. What do you think about as you try to plan for that potential?
Well, I won't comment on the strategy because I'm not the one making the strategy. I think if somebody puts tariffs on product from Canada, Canada's probably going to retaliate, and they went through this before when we had aluminum and steel tariffs. So I'm sure that there'll be some back and forth. I don't think it'll escalate, because it's not good for any of the countries in NAFTA to start a tariff battle again. It's difficult enough just to meet what we're talking with all the administration with the new USMCA. So we don't need any extra complications, and I don't think it's in anybody's best interest. So I hope this is a short-term one-off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't need an escalation in tension, and certainly when we heard about this going back a couple of weeks ago, that was the real fear, is that does this continue to escalate tensions between two countries and two, quite frankly, great trading partners? But Don, when you think about Canada and how important it is to be competitive globally, we do talk about the U.S. having a lower corporate tax rate, Canada on the higher side, also from an individual perspective, brain drain, et cetera. To be truly competitive, or more competitive, with a new finance minister in place, what would be one or two suggestions, if you were an advisor, that you would want to see, that you could think would be a bit of a game changer?
Well, I think everything we can do to encourage the best and the brightest to be educated here, stay here, and to encourage innovation is the ultimate game changer. If you look at the future prosperity of Canada, we need to be making things here. We need to reduce government overhead, government regulation, encourage the private sector, and create more than we buy from outside the country. So it's all about innovation and attracting and keeping the best people. So I know it's popular to get elected to say we're going to tax wealthy more, we're going to tax companies more. If you can't just keep doing that, because you'll eventually lose the companies and lose the high-income people. So I think Minister Freeland understands that, but in our system, you also need to be promising things to get reelected. So hopefully, be well thought through, intelligent decisions made, and we're going to have a deficit issue to deal with. So we've got to figure out how to handle that. But the best way to do it is through being productive, not through taxation.
Yeah, through productive growth. Don, great to see you and get your perspective today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That is Don Walker, the CEO of Magna International.